And it looks like we are live. Hello, everyone. This is My Two Cents. Welcome back to my latest podcast after a long period of time of no podcasts. I'm joined by my co-host, Night Shift 10,000. We're here to talk about the topic of what is the red pill in 2023. Night Shift, do you care to say hello?
Hey there, everyone. What's up?
All right, I'm going to advise everyone beforehand. I am using a brand new microphone. Now, myself and Night Shift did a test beforehand, and everything seems to be working well. But if at any point you can't hear me, by all means, go ahead and put something in the chat, and we'll try and resolve these things. Unfortunately, one of the side effects of doing things live is that there's not a lot you can do about technical difficulties. So anyways, this topic came up, as I'm sure many of you know, at least those of you who have followed me for a long time. My YouTube channel was initially created to making content about economics, specifically free market economics. But over time, I ended up shifting from doing strictly economic and political topics to a lot of men's issues. Now, the reason for that is that, broadly speaking, the nuclear family is perhaps the greatest engine of free market economics, in as much as if you want to live in a free society, you need a society that is built on the nuclear family. And as I explained in my video series, Defending Traditional Marriage, when the family comes together and works properly, you don't need government. And for that reason, freedom can flourish in such a society. On the other hand, government, which always seeks to grow its power and can acquire resources for itself and expand its control, sees the family as a threat to its power, and inevitably it has to take steps to try and break up the nuclear family if it's going to do that. And that is exactly what we're seeing going on in society today. The reason for that, the clear result of that is that you now have this movement within the manosphere, are among those that are speaking out about men's issues, that has come to be called the red pill. Now, specifically, the reason this has come up again is I've been interacting a lot on Twitter, and what I'm seeing is that those that identify as traditional conservatives, the hardcore Republicans, the Christian conservatives, and of note, large female content creators, not exclusively, but a lot of them, have been speaking out a lot about the evils of the red pill, and that is specifically because of everyone's favorite internet star, Andrew Tate. Now, I've talked about Andrew Tate. Damian Wooten says audio is real rough right now. I see I got a couple of other people saying audio is rough. I'm speaking right into the mic, so I will do what I can to try and improve the quality. But we'll keep going. If audio continues, if that's any better, everyone please let me know. Otherwise, I'm doing my best. So Andrew Tate has become a real big media figure right now. He is, of course, under investigation for human trafficking charges and known just generally to be a sleazy individual. But he's also known for attracting the attention of a lot of young men because he promotes traditional masculinity in as much as being fit, acting in your best interest, promoting, of course, flexing in as much as showing off that he's got lots of girls who do his bidding. And a lot of these traditional conservatives are concerned that people like Andrew Tate are toxic to young men. We need to... And I've got another comment here. It's not that you're not close enough. We can hear you loud and clear, but it's popping like crazy. All right. Well, anyways, getting back to what I'm saying there. They're very concerned that Andrew Tate and the red pill are toxic to men everywhere, and we really need to get men back to traditional masculinity. Of course, the question is, what exactly do they mean by traditional masculinity? Now, what I've always found ironic about traditional conservatives is that they are, in fact, strange bedfellows with feminists. Now, what do I mean by that? Traditional conservatives might say they are opposed to, they're against feminism, and they're against everything that stands for. They're for traditional gender roles. They're for traditional masculinity. But if you look at most modern churches, conservative institutions, they are right on board with feminists when it comes to one issue, and that is lack of female responsibility. When it comes to the decisions that women choose to make for which there are predictable consequences. Feminists will argue women are not responsible for the consequences of their own decisions, and ironically enough, traditional conservatives will also argue that women are not responsible for the consequences of their own decisions. They will instead argue that it is I already got one comment now, says audio is good. Okay, hope that's working out better then. Traditional conservatives will argue that women are not, in fact, responsible for their own decisions. If a woman makes a bad decision, the traditional conservative will say, that's really her father's fault for not raising her right. It's her husband's fault for not leading her right. One way or another, they will always find a way to blame men for all the bad things that women do, and assert that if men were just real men, women wouldn't make bad decisions. Of course, ignoring the fact that we no longer live in that kind of argument might have had merit in a society where women truly had no rights, and legally men made all their decisions for them. Of course, in that society it would make sense, but that's not the society we're living in. Women are, in fact, individuals. They have all the same rights as men in modern society. They have the right to make their own decisions. Therefore, they are responsible for their own decisions. And that brings us to what is the red pill itself. Now, before I continue, Night Shift, do you have anything you want to add on any of those points?
No, I completely agree. It's just telling traditional conservatives stop white knighting for women because, they can make their own decisions now, and they're individuals, like you said. So stop the white knighting and, back off.
Okay. And I see Knight and Rose Show also said my mic stopped popping, so good. Looks like I found a position that will work here. Excellent. Like I said, new microphone. I'm still figuring these things out. All right, so anyways, that gets us to the question of what is the red pill itself. Now, I think, unfortunately, as often happens when it comes to ideology, when individuals are faced with an ideology they don't like or that goes against their particular values, they tend to try and pick the worst examples of that ideology and then paint everyone within it as being that ideology. For example, Andrew Tate. I have said before, Andrew Tate is a grifter. Now, whether or not he is actually a legal human trafficker, that is a matter for separate debate. I've seen evidence that might suggest he is. I've seen others that have made arguments that he never actually forced any women to take part in his webcam business, but that is not, I don't seek to settle that issue right now. My point is, Andrew Tate is broadly speaking exemplifies a group within the manosphere that I would call pickup artists. And that is that there are those within that utilize red pill knowledge in order to teach men how to get laid with as many women as they possibly can all the time. And they teach men that it is in fact good to get laid with as many women as you can all the time. Now, they might utilize red pill knowledge, but that doesn't mean that everyone that is that is broadly speaking accepts the red pill is a pickup artist. And it's very convenient for people who are against the red pill to try and pick one particular group, paint the rest of them as being part of that group so they can just dismiss it all. But really, if people would stop to think about it for a minute, where does the term red pill come from? Well, as I'm sure most people are probably aware, the reference itself comes from the movie The Matrix. And the whole point of the particular scene in The Matrix is when Morpheus is about to reveal to Neo that he's actually living in a simulation that's run by machines. Everything he thinks has happened in his life is a lie, and mankind is really just being enslaved by machines to provide energy for them. He offers him a choice of a red or a blue pill, and he says, take the blue pill, you wake up in your bed, you can believe whatever you want. Take the red pill, and I show you how far down the rabbit hole it really goes. But I think one other significant thing he says in that scene is, all I'm offering you is the truth, nothing more. And the point of that is, strictly speaking, at least at that point in the film, Morpheus is not telling Neo how he ought to live his life or what the appropriate response to the truth is. He's just saying, I'm going to show you the way reality actually is. Now, what you choose to do with that information thereafter is entirely up to you. All I'm offering is the truth. And that's the way I see, when it comes to gender relations and gender dynamics, that's all the red pill is. There's the blue pill, which is comforting lies, the way feminists and tradcons would have you believe the world is, and the way they want you to believe the world is because it suits their interests. The red pill, then, is the way the world actually is. So
Right.
the blue pill is essentially the thing that I'm sure all of us young men were taught from the time we were children, and that is that women are sugar and spice and everything nice. Pretty much, if the world was run by women, it would be a totally peaceful, non-violent, happy place. Virtually all problems in the world are caused by men, and anything bad a woman does is actually the fault of men somehow, because at least in the case of traditional conservatives, if men were just real fathers and raised their daughters right, women would never make bad decisions. Or if husbands were just real men and ran their families right, their wives and their daughters would never make bad decisions, and the world would be a perfect place. And you as a man, your mission is effectively, if you ever want to have a wife and have a family and be a man that's worth anything, you need to accept that men are inherently violent and cause all the problems of this world. Commit to opposing those problems and standing up for what's right. You have a special obligation to care for women all the time, even women that are total strangers. In other words, men raised on the blue pill are taught that they must always be respectful to women. They must always hold the door for women. If a woman is in trouble, you have an obligation to give her money or help her out in her problems, expecting nothing in return. You have a special responsibility to always help women, even at your own detriment. And in return, if you do this, society will honor you, they will love you, and in turn, good women that will make good wives will recognize what a wonderful person you are. You'll get married, have kids, and live happily ever after. Would
Which
you
is
say
complete horseshit.
of course, it absolutely is. But Night Shift, would you say that, looking back on your childhood, growing up in school, and what you learned from your mother or anyone else, is that an accurate summation of what young men are taught growing up,
Oh,
of how the world really is?
absolutely. It's what I was taught all throughout my childhood as well. And the sad fact is, we want to say that, usually young boys are learning this in like single mother or single parent households, but no, unfortunately, you see that a lot in like left wing and even right wing homes with both parents. Is that for some reason the fathers in those situations, they become, the spineless jellyfish, basically telling their boys a bunch of horseshit lies like that, where it's like, it's all your fault when the women do something wrong, and you just have to do better, and it's all on you, and blah 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 blah. It's complete BS, and we do need to do better as men, but we need to do better in saying, like, no, this is not the way it is. Women are responsible for their decisions, and it's not on you. It's not on it. It's not on you to protect women. It is not on you to it is not on you to be like the holy defender of women everywhere. And you owe no woman or no one anything.
I agree. And I would say this idea that women only are not responsible, and I guess I already kind of said this once, but I'll repeat it again. The idea that women are not responsible for the decisions they make, that would only apply in a situation where if a woman is in a relationship, or if she's married, and it is understood that she has a complete and total obligation to obey her husband under all circumstances. He is fully responsible for her and has full authority over her, and she must act in accordance with his leadership. In that case, you could say anything that she does, he is responsible for. However, in this modern society, that modern women and even traditional conservatives reject that idea. Well, that's absurd. That's abusive. Women don't have an obligation to obey even their husbands. The mere suggestion is abusive. Now, I'm not actually going to comment on that at the moment, but the point is that unless authority must match responsibility, if you're going to say a man is responsible for something, or any person is responsible for something for that matter, they have to have total authority over it. On the other hand,
Right.
if the other person is an individual and is free to make their own choices, then they are responsible for the outcome of those choices. So, I would like to point out that recently I watched a interview between Ben Shapiro and a guy named Vadi Bakum, and they discussed the question of what does it mean to be a real man. And I remember one thing that really stood out to me in this interview is that Ben Shapiro is talking to Bauckham, who is defending the traditional conservative position, and he's saying men these days are asking, marriage is kind of a raw deal. They see how high divorce rates are. They see that men are torn apart in the courts, and all these other things that men have to suffer under the current paradigm we have. Why should men get married? And Baukham's response was, because it's what you were made to do. Now, that all
No.
sounds great, and I think, like all good lies, there's enough shadows of truth in that statement to convince people. But what it ignores is why is it what men were made to do, and why did men ever want to get married in the first place? Why was it at one point beneficial, and do they really have an obligation to do it now? Because let's face it, when someone says something like because it's what you were made to do, that's nothing but a shaming tactic. And
it is.
A real man gets married and has children, or a real man isn't afraid to date a single mother, or heck, even in the case of someone like Andrew Tate, a real man has sex with hundreds and hundreds of women. Okay, all three of those people said different things, but notice something. They're all telling you what a real man is what personally benefits them. The traditional conservative, a real man gets married and has children. Yeah, he's telling you that's what a quote-unquote real man is, because that supports his agenda. A single mother says a real man's not afraid to date a single mom. Of course, she believes that. She wants a man to date. It suits her agenda for you to believe that this is what a real man does. Andrew Tate and these pickup artists, a real man has sex with hundreds and hundreds of women. Well, of course, they want you to spend thousands of dollars on their course to learn how to pick up women.
Right.
They don't really care what a real man is. They know that men inherently want to be respected and honored, and if they at all insinuate you're not a real man if you don't do what we say, it triggers that instinct in men to want to be respected. Oh, well, if I want to be respected, I better do what they're saying. And these men don't stop to ask the question, why is that what a real man does? Why should I really want to do it? Because you say so?
Well, here's the other thing. If a woman ever just bald-facedly tells you, this is what a real man does. If a woman is saying that to you, like just bald-faced, point blank, do not take it for anything. That is not worth a damn thing. If it's a woman just saying that to you point blank, do not put any stake in that. Do not put any because of course she's gonna be driven by emotions, and she's gonna say, well, you're not doing this, you're not taking care of the single mother, you're not taking care of my children, you're not getting me a new car, you're not buying me a new house, blah 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 blah. And she's basically trying, it's a grift. She's trying to get that out of you. And so I would say when any woman just says that, when any woman anywhere just says point blank at you, you're not a real man if you don't do this and this and this and this for me and others. If you ever hear that, I would say just, whatever, bitch, I'm going this way, and you can say whatever the hell you want. Just let it go. Honestly, just let that go, because there is no stake to be put in that. There is absolutely no stake to be put in that. And I've learned that even from experience. That when a woman is usually just firing off like that at you, do not put any stake in that. Do not put any stake in that. Just be like, whatever, bitch, and walk away. That's what I would say to that, at least.
Okay. So let's get into the so now finally, with all that as background, let's get to what is the red pill really. There are a lot of people criticizing the red pill, saying it's dangerous for young men. We need to get men back to real masculinity, whatever that means. They don't define it. But what is the red pill? Again, the red pill is nothing but the truth. The question is, how are men and women different, and how do intersex dynamics actually work? So to answer the question, let's go back. I think the easiest way to answer this is to first go back to way ancient history, hundreds of thousands of years ago, and think about the first humans that are living on a prehistoric Earth. Modern technology is gone. Nature is brutal. You've got saber-toothed tigers and T-Rexes running around. Okay, well, not really. T-Rexes were extinct, but you get my point.
No, I get it, yeah.
The world is dangerous, and early humanity, compared to now, seems ill-equipped to handle it. Men and women are much more so than even today, aware of the fact that they are mortal. Death could come any minute by being chomped by a saber-toothed tiger, by catching a disease for which there is no cure, for falling off a cliff while you're trying to hunt or forage food. You are going to die, and it's probably going to happen soon. The only chance you have of the human race continuing is if you have children. And
Right.
from a strict biological survival standpoint, it's clear having more children is better than having fewer children. Why is that? Because the more children, well, one, mortality rate's high as it is. The infant mortality rate is even higher. Most children that are born are not going to make it to adulthood. So the more children you have, the more children inherently will make it to adulthood. The more children make it to adulthood, the more people you have that can dominate your surroundings for the purposes of foraging food, hunting, protecting the rest of the people. And ultimately, if you have enough, as you grow your tribe, eventually you get enough people that you can start specializing in particular skills and building and through free market economics, build an actual society that flourishes. So the world is dangerous, and we need more children to make it less dangerous. What's the best way to go about this? Well, now you consider men and women as individuals. Strictly take any individual male from I forgot to give this as a disclaimer. Again, the red pill, we're discussing the way men and women are. I'm going to say this very clearly, I am not saying that any particular behavior taken by a man or a woman is necessarily a good thing for society or is necessarily moral. I'll say that one more time just so that there's no confusion. I'm not commenting at all on whether or not any particular behavior by men or women is moral or good for society. We're only at this point talking about the way men and women inherently are, not the way they should be or how they ought to behave in a civilized society. We're just discussing the way men and women inherently are. So men, from setting aside all moral or societal considerations, let's just ask the question, what can a man do that best increase his ability to have more children and thereby further his interests by protecting himself and his progeny from nature? Well, from a strictly biological standpoint, the answer to that is have sex with as many fertile women as you possibly can. Now, if a man has, in this early state of nature, if a man has sex with 100 women, maybe 10% of them turn out not to be fertile. So of those 100 women, 90 of them get pregnant. Of the 90 that get pregnant, 20 of them miscarry before the child's even born. Another 30, the infant dies within the first 3 years of his life. And when all is said and done, maybe 10 of those children are actually born and make it to adulthood. But then that's 10 more children that pass on his genetic legacy than were before. Now, again, I'm not saying that means men should have sex with every fertile woman they possibly can all the time. I'm just saying from a strictly biological survival standpoint, it makes sense for men to try and have sex with as many fertile women as they possibly can. Mm-hmm. The good, the bad, and the ugly. If she's beautiful, have sex with her. If she's ugly, have sex with her. If she's fat, have sex with her. The bottom line is, if she's fertile, it cannot hurt his chances of having more children to have sex with them all. And for that reason, men instinctively have this drive to try and have sex with as many women as they possibly can. The good, bad, and the ugly. On the other hand, and beyond that, what are the things that men value when it comes to women? Primarily, there are three things, but there are really only one thing, and that is that everyone says men value youth, beauty, and fertility. But the truth of the matter is, youth and beauty are only signifiers for fertility. The reason men are attracted to women who are young and beautiful is because both those things increase the likelihood that she is fertile. So if you really want to boil it down, there's really only one thing that men are attracted to, and that is them fertility. Being fertile. And even if Cindy over here is a 10 and Becca over here is a 3, but they're both fertile, I might want to have sex with Cindy more, but the truth is if I have sex with both of them, it increases my chances more that I have more children, and the chances of survival are greater. So even if Cindy is a better choice, genetically speaking, the male instinct is still take them all, have sex with them all. Mm-hmm. What about the female instinct? Well, the females, on the other hand, have different priorities. They have to be much more selective in that once a woman gets pregnant by a particular man, she can't get unpregnant by another man having sex with her. She is now pregnant with that man's child, and she's for the next 9 months she's going to have to bring that child to term. But beyond that, once the child is born, that her son or daughter is going to be completely helpless to protect himself from nature. As she gets to those later stages of pregnancy, she's going to be much less able to run, hunt, and forage. She'll be much more susceptible to nature, and it's going to be hit. It's going to have her child. It's going to take a long time of protecting and raising that child before the child is ready to function on their own. So if you think about it, until all but recent history, getting pregnant came with it a huge risk for a woman. She is inherently in a more delicate, dangerous position when she's pregnant, and even after she has a child. In order to raise that child, she's going to have to put herself at risk more often. So it makes sense that unlike men who, look, if it's fertile, have sex with it and it increases my chances of reproducing, women, on the other hand, are going to be much more selective. She's unlike a man who's just looking for as many fertile women as possible. A woman is essentially looking for two things. One, looking for the most genetically superior man. In other words, the strongest and healthiest man is the most likely to give her good genes, which thereby gives her the best chance that her child is going to be healthy. But beyond that, then also she wants a man who is going to stay with her and protect her from the elements. By herself, she's relatively helpless, but if she has a strong man that is protecting her and her child, it greatly increases the chances that she continues to survive and that her progeny are going to continue to survive. However, it's worth noting that of those two things she's seeking to achieve, she might like to achieve that in the same man. She'd like to find a man who is both strong and has good genes and is also going to stick around and protect her from nature. But at least in principle, she could try to satisfy this using multiple men. For example, if Chad Maximum over here is 6'4", super strong, dominates his surroundings, but he's not going to stick around and raise her child. She could try to have sex with Chad Maximum, get pregnant with his child, and then go over here and find Eugene, or whatever you want to call him. He's only 5'9" and not as genetically superior, but at least he could still protect her from nature and help her raise the child. At least she could try to do that. The problem is, men are, of course, rational creatures. If they see that a woman is already pregnant, what they say is, that's not my kid. Me raising that kid is not helping me protect my genetic legacy. Why should I put myself in harm's way, and work hard to protect someone else's child? It's not in my best interest. So for that reason, women realize, oh crap, that strategy is probably not going to work, at least in most cases. So for that reason, a woman has to try and balance those two things. On one hand, just because Chad Maximum has the best genes, if he's not willing to stick around and protect her, it's not in her best interest to have sex with him. She's got to find a man that's strong enough to protect her and care for her children, but also is willing to stick around, protect her and her offspring. And this is where we get to the modern statement that women are the gatekeepers of sex, men are the gatekeepers of relationships. Women figured out early on that it was in their best interest to restrict access to sex so as to demand a higher price for it. And women realize if they come together and say, look, we need to tell men everywhere, we're not putting out until you commit to us. Basically, the only way they can guarantee their children their safety and the safety of their children is if they get the man to first promise up front that he's going to stick around. I will not give you the sex you desire unless you can prove to me you're going to stick around and care for me and the children. Then the situation comes. Even Chad Maximum realizes if all the women are not going to put out unless I settle down, well then even if I want to have sex with all the women, the best option I have is pick the best, most genetically superior woman, or the woman I value the most, commit to her, and at least I can have as many children with her, and that's my best chance. He pairs off with, Cindy, whatever you want to call her, so-and-so. They form a family. All the women are heartbroken that Chad Maximum didn't pick them, but they now realize, okay, he's a lost cause. He's got a mate of his own. I'll pick Dave because he's the next best option, and so on and so forth. And basically, everyone then gravitates towards the monogamous marriage relationship. It's both the man and the woman are inherently sacrificing something to part of their innate drive in order to achieve something better together. The man is inherently sacrificing his ability to have sex with as many women as possible, but by having a single mate, he is also guaranteed of his paternity, and knowing that by investing in these children, he's investing in his genetic legacy. The woman is sacrificing her ability to try and move from man to man to achieve what she wants, whether it's get Chad Maximum's genes and get Dave's money and get so-and-so's power. As it's called, men are naturally polygamous, have sex with as many women as possible. Women are naturally hypergamous. They don't necessarily want multiple male sex partners for its own sake, but they'd like to be able to transfer their loyalties from man to man whenever it suits them, when a man who's better suited to their current needs comes along. But I think that's why, and the citation, if anyone wants to look up, in my video series Defending Traditional Marriage, specifically my third video, Marriage in the State, I linked to a study called Are We Naturally Monogamous?, in which several anthropologists doing a comprehensive study of human history find that in every society, everywhere throughout human history, monogamous marriage relationships emerge as the rule, not the exception. Now, does that mean there aren't societies that practice polygamy or things like that? No, there are, but even in societies where polygamy is socially accepted, it's the exception, not the rule. Most people choose monogamous marriage relationships because it is beneficial to both of them. Now, again, that is the red pill. Men are inherently polygamous, women are inherently hypergamous. This is not right or wrong, it's just the way things are. Now, of course, that does not answer the question, what is the moral way for men and women to behave? That's a separate question. But if men and women are ever to have successful relationships with one another, they need to understand this is just how men and women are. If you try to pretend that's not the way the world is, well, you can only ignore reality so long before you start bumping into it. Now, of course, the next point to make, though, is that that natural, unregulated state of nature, where men and women's nature come together, their natural instincts cancel each other out, and monogamy emerges as the rule, that only happens in that natural state where men and women need each other for something they don't have. Now, as I said before, in the modern world today, the family is a threat to the power of government. When you have a married man and woman and children, if a man is committed to his family and committed to protecting them, the need for police protection goes down. If you have stay-at-home mothers who are actively raising and caring for their children, the need for government-run daycares and schools goes down. If women are at home caring for the children and not in the workforce, the amount of taxable income the government can make goes down. So as I've argued, and I believe successfully have, any government anywhere, regardless of if it pays lip service to the family at any given point, realizes that so long as there are strong families, it cannot grow its power and its influence. Therefore, it must break down the family. How does it go about this? Well, I don't think it's a coincidence that modern feminism only arose within the past few centuries after modern conveniences and government combined basically solved most of women's naturally occurring problems. Now, what I mean by that is hundreds, thousands of years ago, women literally needed men for protection. Without men in their lives to protect them, they were doomed to be eaten by saber-toothed tigers or whatever else have you. But with men protecting them, they had a much better chance of survival. And so, even if a woman couldn't score Chad Maximum, she would latching and forming a partnership with a man was still to her benefit. However, we're living in a world where you've got modern technology, modern conveniences, and you have a government with an expansive welfare state, social programs, and a police force that have in many ways removed the things that women's husbands once did for them are no longer needed in the same sense that they were before. Well, how does that affect men's and women's incentives? Well, in the case of women no longer view marriage as a necessity anymore. They view it as they can get by without having husbands and families. Thereby, it allows their natural hypergamous drive to only seek out the top tier men to run rampant, and we can see this with the modern dating scene. I mean, there are hundreds of YouTube videos that have gone over this, but we're living in a society where women, by and large, are only attracted to maybe the top 10, 5% of men in terms of looks, money, wealth, and status. And that makes sense when you think about it, because again, women are looking for instinctively, they're still looking for the best genes possible to sire healthy children, and the best possible protection and comfortable living for themselves. But because marriage is because they no longer need men in the same way they do, they end up gravitating to this small group of men. Now, strictly speaking, it is not wrong for women to desire those things, but from a strictly mathematical standpoint, it should be obvious to anyone. Every woman in the world cannot have one of these, as they're often called. The term that's been adopted, I shouldn't assume everyone knows what we're talking about. The term Chad, broadly speaking, in modern red pill lingo, essentially refers to a man who is very attractive to women. It can be a variety of things, but when someone says that guy is a Chad, typically they mean he's over 6 feet tall, muscular, makes at least $100,000 a year, and has some kind of job or position in society that is considered as being very well respected and of high status.
Yeah, basically the 666 of women's standards. He's got to have a six pack. He's got to be 6 foot even or taller, and he's got to be making six figures. God, it's complete bullshit too. And I know you've had kind of like a falling out. I do want to mention this because I actually even mirrored this in one of my videos. I know, like you and Just Pearly Things have, she blocked you. I know that, but I've got to mention this because I did mirror this in my video. I don't know if I had you mirror that video on your channel, but I mirrored what she said in one of my videos. And basically, the solution is simple. Stop having sex with whales, because guys are getting so desperate nowadays to find someone that they will even go for the fat and ugly three. And these women like Lizzo, we've seen her on Twitter, and they'll basically think that they're like 8s, 9s, and 10s when they're really just 2s, 3s, and 4s. And it's because men are getting they're getting so desperate nowadays that unfortunately they'll go for these women, and these women will think that they are in that top tier when they're really not. And I mean, it is harder to do, but more men really need to kind of hold themselves to a higher standard. And if it means more men going MGTOW, or possibly even becoming like passport bros, where they go to other countries to find more traditional and submissive women, then, I say that needs to increase. That needs to go up, because this has got to stop. The ego boosting of these women in the West, who literally have high body counts. They sleep around, they fuck around left and right with as many men as they can get their legs around. And I mean, yeah, and they're literal 2s who think that they're 8s. And it's just, oh God, it's a massive falling away from where we used to be as men back in those times. And even sooner than that, when we did have societies. We did actually have societies that were not prehistoric, but it was like, like ancient Sparta, or there was another one that I can't really think about right now, but it was like, it was where men were actually men. It's where, we were more manly. We prized our masculinity, and we really need to get back to that. No matter how much the feminists go at us, no matter how much the woke joke movement goes at us, no matter how much the leftists go at us, we as men really need to get back to our masculinity. And masculinity needs to not be looked down upon as something that is toxic or that is wrong, because it's what makes us us, and we need to get back to that.
And we'll get to that in a second. I
Okay,
think you're
beautiful.
absolutely right. But I think one thing that's important to note here is the greatest power women had to ensure the best possible situation for themselves was, in my opinion, when women, by and large, agreed we are not going to have sex until men commit to us. In other words, until we get married, we won't have sex. When 95% of women had that opinion, that created a situation where every woman had the best shot possible of getting the best quality man she possibly could. Because then,
Yep.
even Chad Maximum, that top tier guy who every woman wants, if he's going from woman to woman and every single woman tells him no sex before marriage, he realizes I'm not getting any until I settle down. And yes, that means a lot of girls are not going to be able to marry Chad Maximum, but it also means that everyone will naturally probably end up pairing up with someone who's about equivalent to them in their level of attractiveness. And everyone gets to have a marriage and a family, and society is productive as a result. Well, what changed? Again, as women no longer need men in the same fashion they have, modern feminism told them, not only do you not need men, men are oppressing you, they're responsible for all your problems, and the only way you're ever going to be free is if you actually act like men, in turn being sexually promiscuous. We now live in a society where it's socially acceptable for men and women to have sex before marriage and just, flat out have casual sex. You no longer need to even be dating or have a formal relationship. You can just have sex whenever you want, go for it, good for you. Well, the problem is, now, again, you have to remember, the male biological imperative is have sex with as many women as you possibly can. So these women have basically said, we only want the top 10 to 5% of men. The rest of men can just disappear for all we... As far as we're concerned, those men don't even exist. We only want the top 10% of men. Well, the top 10% of men, they still have that in basic instinct, have sex with as many women as possible. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Women make the mistake of thinking, if I can successfully get a man to have sex with me, that shows that I'm on his level and he sees me as a possible marriage partner. That's just flat out wrong. It's not. You don't understand how men work. Just because the fact that he's willing to have sex with you says absolutely nothing about whether or not he sees you as a viable marriage partner. And every woman thinks, if I can just get him in the sack, I can eventually tie him down. You can't. With so few men, with so many women chasing so few men, these few men can have sex with as many women as they want, never having to commit. These women can, at least for a short period of time in their life, feel super happy and empowered because all the men they want are having sex with them. But eventually they realize, as they start to age, they're not so young anymore. They're not quite as beautiful. And both those things, again, are a signifier for fertility. Men are less attracted to women who are less fertile. And eventually it's going to reach a point where, she goes through menopause, she can't have children at all. And she will truly become as invisible to the men she's attracted to as the average men that women want nothing to do with are. So we're in a society where you get more and more unmarried women that are unhappy and pining over these chads that they'll never get with. You've got these men that are having sex with lots of different women and not having to commit, and you've got a large amount of men that aren't having any sex at all. So what is the situation that the modern feminists are trying to create? Well, what they're effectively what they want is essentially average men who women don't see. We still need, although they won't acknowledge it, what they're really saying in the back of their mind is, we still need you. We need IT people to fix our internet because we want to be able to keep shopping online. We need plumbers to make sure water keeps running into our house. We need electricians to keep the lights on. We need mechanics to keep our cars working. And we need taxable income so that the government can keep funding these programs so that women aren't left destitute and out on the street. So what we need all you men that are not having sex to keep doing is keep getting jobs, keep working hard, do it for the benefit of women who you are not married to and who are having other men's children, so that we women can keep chasing after the men we actually want, and that small amount of men can keep having sex with as many women as they possibly want. Yeah. That is the situation we truly find ourselves in, which has got a lot of men asking, what's in it for me? Why should I continue to work at a job that I hate 50, 60 hours a week to produce money for women who don't respect me and want to pretend I don't even exist? Why should I do that? You know what? I am out. And we see more and more men are just deciding to get jobs where they can work as little as possible, make as little money as they possibly can for as few days a week as they possibly can, so they can go home, play video games, jerk off to porn, and whatever else they want to do with their lives. And the traditional conservatives are saying, come on, men, that's not what real men do. Real men work hard for the benefit of women. Real men get married and have children, even if there are no women that are willing to marry them. And incidentally, usually what these traditional conservative are trying to say is a lot of these women, once they have reached about the age of 30, 35 years old, they've got a couple kids from different men. They're starting to realize the men that they are actually attracted to, the Chads, are not going to settle down with them. And every passing year as she gets older, more gray hairs, more sagging skin, she gets more and more aware of the fact that she's never going to snag that man she actually wants. So she then runs back to church or these conservative spaces, and in an effort she still wants to have her special day, her wedding day, for everyone to love her and tell her how beautiful and wonderful she is. She runs back to church and says, "Hey, I've seen the light. I've repented. God has forgiven me, and you have to forgive me too." And all these traditional conservatives are like, "Praise the Lord, hallelujah! She's repented and she's a child of God now." Men, hey, 35-year-old man over there who's still a virgin. Here's your bride to be. Marry her and have more kids with her and fulfill your purpose to God and to this country. And the man is saying, rightly so, why? What's really in it for me? She gave her best years to other men. She's bringing along kids that aren't mine, and it's not my responsibility to raise. Why should I continue to? And further, the odds that she divorces me and takes away half my stuff are pretty darn good if you look at the statistics. What is in it for me? So the question I really have to all these traditional conservatives that are attacking the red pill is, Andrew Tate is not a good person. I've never said that he was. But there's a reason he's appealing to young men. He's telling them the truth about how male and female nature really is, and he's offering them a solution. Now, is it necessarily the best solution? Be sexually promiscuous if you want to, and have sex with as many women as you want to. No, I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. But do you not understand why his message appeals? Young men realize what you tradcons, what my church, what these conservative talking heads are telling me I have a moral obligation to do, it doesn't benefit me. It benefits the women. Why should I actively harm myself to benefit women who actively hate me? And the truth is they do. If you, many of these, again, I shouldn't paint with a broad brush. This is not to say that every woman everywhere hates every man, but the attitude, if you look at the modern dating scene and how women absolutely refuse to date anyone but these top tier men, if they don't actively hate other men, they at least want these men to pretend like they don't exist. They don't want to see them. They don't want to hear them. They don't want to talk to them. They just want you, shut up, get back in your cubicle, and pay your taxes so I can keep doing this. And the question that needs to be asked, what's in it for them? Why on earth should they keep doing this? And that is the question I would love to hear these Vadi Bakum, I'm sure he's not watching this, but if he were, I would say, when you tell men, when Ben Shapiro asked you why should men get married, your answer, because it was made to do, even if you're right, even if it was what I was made to do, why should I do it if it is actively to my detriment? Why should I subject myself to pain and suffering so that women can continue, irresponsible women can continue having what they want?
You shouldn't.
Exactly. And now here is where we get to the discussion of what do I think men should do at this point. Now, I think, unfortunately, the damage is already done. Society is very far gone. And I think getting back to traditional gender norms where women would be a good thing, it's not going to happen fast. What it really is going to take in order to turn things around is women need to collectively decide that they're going to stop being so frivolous with sex and not have sex until before commitment. But the truth is, I can't force women to do that, and neither can any other individual. I can encourage them to, but it's not a change that's going to happen soon. So the particular of the groups within the manosphere, I consider myself a MGTOW. Now, what does MGTOWs preach? Again, I don't consider myself the spokesperson for the group. I'm sure various different content creators have different ideas. But for me, MGTOW, men going your own way, all that effectively means is I'm going to stop caring about what women collectively want or need and start doing what's best for me. Right. Now, does that necessarily mean I'm going to forego relationships with women altogether? Go complete monk mode? Not necessarily. Is it true many people who identify as MGTOWs do go full monk mode? Yes, but I don't. You can still choose to date or even get married, in my opinion, if you are a MGTOW, but only if you are one, aware of male female nature, aware of the state of the current culture we live in, no fault divorce, the current family court system, and you have to treat it like you would any other business transaction. You don't do it because it's the right thing to do and people are telling you you have a moral obligation to. If you do get married, you only do so because you've weighed the risk, with the possible benefits and decided that that is what's best for you. At the end of the day, if you sorry, I just lost my train of thought. But my point is, no one. If you are a man, no one else is going to look out for your interests but you. Do not sacrifice yourself for other people just because other people are telling you you have a moral obligation to do so. Because I'll tell you this: women are not going to put your interests before them, no matter how kind you are, no matter how much you follow. You do every little good thing your mother told you to. Women will not respect you for it. In fact, if you grow a backbone and start doing what's best for you, it doesn't guarantee women will respect you, but there's a far better chance they will than if you do everything they want all the time.
Exactly.
Now, there are at least two other groups within the manosphere that I would specifically reject. And first, I would say pickup artists. I don't necessarily have anything against pickup artists in the way the tradcons do. Do I personally believe it is immoral to try and have sex with as many women as you want for no matter what, even if it hurts those women? No, I don't. But I think an important thing to point out is pickup artists can only exist if there is a sufficient supply of women that are willing to have premarital sex. Again, women are the gatekeepers of sex, men are the gatekeepers of relationships. You can preach all you want about how pickup artists are immoral. But the truth of the matter is pickup artists would not exist if women collectively decided they were not going to give up sex easily. So although I'm not going to say pickup artists are moral people or what they're doing is right, it's kind of the example I always go back to is imagine you're in inner city ghetto of Chicago at 2 o'clock in the morning and you decide to walk down some dark alley with a $100 bill tied around your neck and you get mugged. Now, you can be up in arms and cry, robbery is wrong. It is evil and immoral to rob people. And yes, I agree, it is evil and immoral to rob people. But who is at fault for getting robbed in that situation, really? You. Because you deliberately put yourself in a situation where it was certain that was going to happen. There are always going to be bad people in this world. If saying we're going to put an end to crime by teaching criminals to stop robbing people is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous to say we're going to stop premarital sex by teaching pickup artists to stop trying to have sex with women. Men have been trying to have sex with women since the dawn of time. The only thing that puts an end to that is women deciding that they're not going to put out unless men put a ring on it. Next, you have the other group. You have on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have the black pill incel group of people. Now, I need to differentiate here, as I presume most people watching know what this is, but I can't guarantee everyone does. The term incel means involuntary celibate and generally refers to a man who wants to have sex but can't. There are two senses in which this term is used. The primary sense in which it's an actual community of men who self-identify as incels. They say, I want to have a sexual relationship with a woman, but despite my best efforts, I can't. But then there's also, it's more or less just wielded as an insult to anyone who says something you don't like, particularly by feminists and people who lean to the left. If anyone who has ever been on a debate in Twitter knows that the moment you leave a comment that's critical of socialism, Black Lives Matter, women, anything like that, it's not going to be long before somebody quick claps back. You're just saying that because you're an incel. And of course, grow up. If you think something I said was incorrect, point it out. If you think I can't get laid, I don't care. If that's where you go, it shows you have no answer to the argument. But we'll put that aside. This group of men that has gone about self-identifying as incels, and they more or less claim to accept the tenets of the red pill, but then they also basically conclude the game is hopelessly rigged against them. They have no chance of ever being in a relationship, so they just want to gather in this little corner on the internet and complain about how life is unfair. I can't get a relationship. Wah, wah, woe is me, woe is me.
Mm-hmm.
I have zero respect for this group of people, and I have tried to some degree to interact with people on Twitter and understand where they're coming from. And what I've seen is that when you offer them, hey, you could do this to improve yourself, you could do that to improve yourself, they just sneer at you, say, you're just saying that because you're an incel too, and you just don't know it. You're sooner or later you're gonna realize that life's not as good as you think it is. They're basically like socialists. Socialists can't stand that
Oh
other
yeah.
people have money, and if they could make everyone be poor, they would do so just so that everyone else is as miserable as them. You're not helping anyone, not even yourself. Now, if that is how you want to live your life, it's a free country. Go for it, man. But you're only no one cares about your problems, and you're only hurting yourself. So that is not the appropriate response to this either.
Exactly.
I would say from what I encourage men everywhere to do is, again, as much as I would like to go back to traditional gender norms, that change, if it ever comes, is going to be slow. The solution is, one, stoically accept that this is the way things are. Look, men and women are a certain way. Government has screwed with the natural incentives we have to get together, and the result we have is this modern society. You can cry about it, but that's not going to change the situation. Life's not fair. The sooner you accept that, the happier you're going to be.
Exactly.
At that point, again, decide that you no longer collectively care what women want or need, and start doing what's best for you. Figure out what your life's going to be about. Now, I do recommend the few things Andrew Tate says that I think he gets right. Get a job and take pride in it. Even if not everyone can be Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or make billions of dollars, but heck, if you are a cashier at McDonald's, do your best every day you go to work. Take pride in what you do. Commit yourself to being the best cashier at McDonald's, and you'll start to have a better outlook on life.
Yep.
Go to the gym. Now, before everyone says accuses me of being a gym cell, which is another term that incels use, saying, for men that just go to the gym because they think if they get big muscles they'll get laid. Don't go to the gym because if you get six pack, you think if I can get six pack abs I might get laid. That's the wrong reason to do it. Go to the gym because it's healthy, and as you improve your physical body, you'll improve your mental health as well. Then after that, find hobbies other than just playing video games and jerking off to porn. Again, I if that's how you choose to live your life, it's a free country. You go for it, man. But I don't think you're gonna find self-fulfillment out of that. I'd encourage men, run a marathon, get a black belt. Heck, get together with a group of your friends on weekends and pick up trash on the highway. The particulars aren't important, but the bottom line, pick something that is hard and do it for the sake of it being hard. You'll find that the more challenges you take on in life just for the sake of challenges, the better you'll feel about yourself. You train, you spend weeks training for a marathon, you run a marathon, and even if it takes you 4 hours and you're well behind the guy who won, you can say, I trained for this, I did it. If you commit yourself to writing a novel, it's a hard endeavor, but you sit down, it takes you months, but you finally finish that. You can say, I wrote that, and it's something I can be proud of. Study a martial art, or you can think of endless examples. But if you can do something that's difficult for the sake that it's difficult and for your own benefit, not because you're trying to get laid, you'll start having more respect for yourself, and it'll increase the chances that women might find you attractive. Again, I'm not going to promise that they are. Unfortunately, we live in an unfair world, and nothing you do can guarantee women are going to find you attractive. But if you can't respect yourself, why should anyone else respect you? And I will quickly end on what I believe to be one of the most motivational scenes that's ever been made in film. And if anyone here has ever watched the film The Greatest Showman with Hugh Jackman, it was a musical that was loosely based on the life of P.T. Barnum, the famous circus manager. And there's a scene in this film where Hugh Jackman, playing P.T. Barnum, is just getting in the initial stages of starting the show that is later on going to be called The Circus. And he's looking for unique people of all kinds that can perform strange, weird, out there acts that are going to draw people in. And the first person he approaches is this young man who's a midget. We find out he's 22 years old, and he's like 3 feet tall and lives at his mother's house. And he goes to the mother's house and knocks and says, I'm looking for your son. The son doesn't want to talk to him, and he finally comes out. and he says, I'm looking for unique people, and I think they'd really love to see a little guy like you dressed up as Napoleon riding around on a horse and doing all kinds of crazy stunts. And the midget looks at him and just kind of looks down at his feet, and he says, "You want them to laugh at me." And this is my favorite part of the movie, and Hugh Jackman just smiles and looks at him. He says, "They're already laughing at you, son. You might as well get paid."
Exactly.
And I think that really captures, if you want to succeed as a man, that is the mentality you need to have. Now, I mean, it's not this guy's it's not this guy's fault. He was a midget. That's out of his control. He was born. These are the cards fate has dealt him, and now he's got a choice to make. He can either live in his mother's house for the rest of his life, feeling sorry for himself, or he can find something that he can do that benefits other people, that benefits him, and make something of himself. And you find later on at the end, throughout the movie, and of course it's loosely based on a true story. I'm sure. I can't say P.T. Barnum's whole operation was actually like this in the real world. But what you find in that is that all these people who have various physical disabilities and ailments and problems come together. They create a show that people actually like and makes a ton of money, and they form a family together and have a life that's worth living. And that really is, and I think if you can adopt that same mentality, look, life's not fair, and there's nothing I can do about it, but I can choose to be the best I'm going to be. If you can do that, that is how you succeed as a man. And
Exactly.
Eventually, if more men start doing that, if more men start refusing to pick up the pieces for women who have made bad decisions, it'll be a long time coming, but we can reverse that cultural trend.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm going to quick look through comments here, see if there's anything we need to respond to. Nightshift, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, that summed it up pretty well, actually. That was pretty good.
All right, excellent. Damien Wooten says no super chats. Unfortunately, no. In the long period of time that I did not put out any content, unfortunately, my channel fell below the standard of views you need to be monetized, so I no longer am. Very good analysis, 2 cents. Thank you very much. Well, we've been going for more than an hour, so anyways, for all those watching, this has been my analysis of what the red pill is. To sum up, the red pill is morally neutral. It is not... If you accept the red pill, it says absolutely nothing about how you think men or women should behave. All the red pill is men and women are different. Men and women have different biological drives and different natural strategies for reproducing. If you don't understand that, the odds that you have a successful relationship are just basically nothing. You can try to ignore the fact that the government has a direct incentive to tear the family down in order to grow its own power. You can ignore this if you want, but it doesn't change the reality. And under the current paradigm, modern men, by and large, have no incentive to get married anymore. You can ignore this all you want. You can tell men they have a moral duty to do so. It's not going to work anymore. Men have been giving into this for far too. They've been shamed into doing things against their best interests for far too long. They are waking up. My challenge to traditional conservatives everywhere is quit treating women like they are children. Women are individuals capable of making their own decisions for which there are natural consequences. Stop rescuing them and absolving them of responsibility for the consequences of their own bad decisions. If you don't, this will never change. If you don't, men are going to keep piecing out. And if you're going to attack men like Andrew Tate, look, I think Andrew Tate is a horrible person. I've never said otherwise. But the reason he is appealing to young men is because he's willing to accept the truth about male and female nature, and he's giving men an out that isn't just continue sacrificing yourself for the sake of women. If you want them to come back to your churches and your conservative spaces, you're going to have to give them a better offer that actually is in their best interest. And quite simply, that is my 2 cents. You can take it for what it's worth.
Nice.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. Hope to do another one of these soon, and have a good night.